Hello again, Kings fans. Nick Nickson here, and welcome to another of our Kings Alumni Legend Series. On our last chat, we had an opportunity to visit with three former Kings defensemen, Jay Wells, Gary Galley, and Matthias Nordstrom. And today we're pleased to present an All-American theme, three U.S.-born players that not only played for the Kings, but were teammates for a couple of years with each other with the Kings. From Downers Grove, Illinois, we've got Tony Granato. From Livonia, Michigan, we have Mike Donnelly. And from Cloquet, Minnesota, Corey Millen. Thanks for joining us, guys. Corey, I want to start with you because I have a pretty good idea what Mike Donnelly does. He's been with the Kings organization for a number of years since he's retired. I know Tony is coaching college hockey, but fill us in on number one, where you're living these days and what keeps you busy.
Well, I'm back up north in northern Minnesota in Cloquet, my hometown right now. And second, I'm waiting for one of my former teammates or line mates to, get me a job. I mean, look at, they're just living high on the hog here, and I'm sitting here panhandling in Cloquet. No, but I just currently, I've done some coaching in the North American Hockey League, junior. Then I think the same year Tony and I went back to school, and I did some work with the University of Minnesota as I finished up my degree, and then did some work out at the Air Force Academy, went to the USHL, and now I'm back a head coach in St. Cloud in the North American League again. So that's kind of what I've been doing the last few months, trying to build a team.
And give us a background from Cloquet, Minnesota. I know it's not a big town. I want to say, if I remember the Wikipedia correctly, maybe 10,000 tops. And where is that in the state of Minnesota?
So yeah, it's growing rapidly. I think it's at about 12 now, but it's about 18 miles south off 35W from Duluth. So real close to Duluth.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. Tony, 4 years in the books now as the head coach of the Badgers, the University of Wisconsin, your alma mater, where you played collegiately. How have you enjoyed that? You've kind of gone full circle. You started playing with the Badgers back in the mid-'80s, and now you're back there some 30, 35 years later.
Yeah, it's been a great experience. I had a ton of fun and an enjoyable run in the NHL, both as a player and coach. And then the opportunity 4 years ago to come back was there for me. Like Corey just said, Corey and I, didn't quite finish school when we left to play pros. So that was always in the back of my mind. Someday I got to get back and finish my degree. I was telling my kids all along, yeah, I'm going back. But I thought I was going to be a liar at some point without having an opportunity. So fortunately that opportunity came back and began coaching 4 years ago. It's been a ton of fun. You guys will know the fact that Alex Turcotte, your big first-round pick from last year, I had the privilege of coaching him last year. So being able to work with younger players that have the same ambitions that we did when we were in high school and in college, of trying to play professionals or Olympics or making the most out of your collegiate career, that's been exciting. And I've had a ton of fun so far in my first 4 years.
Tell us a little bit more about Alex Turcotte, Tony. He signed a pro contract recently with the Kings. So basically, you're the one that has the up-to-date scouting report. He played for you as a freshman last year.
Yeah, I mean, he's a tremendously skilled player. He's got an offensive instinct, great hands, but sees the ice really well, great competitor. So he's got all the tools that you would want in a young player skill-wise. I think his year here last year, he had a World Junior experience as an underage player in the World Juniors. And then our experience here last year, the year wasn't perfect for him. I think it was a really good year for him to battle through some injuries, to battle through some tough competition from the standpoint. He was our number one center as a freshman. And when you play against college teams, you're playing against 22, 23-year-old kids on the other end that know you're playing against a first-round pick and an 18-year-old kid. They made it hard on him. And I thought as the year went along, he learned to deal with that challenge of being the big guy in the lineup. I thought he was, like I said, an outstanding competitor. I think he's ready for pro hockey. I know it's young. He just turned 19. But his mindset and his heart and his dream from the time he put on his first pair of skates was to play in the NHL. And he will be ready for that opportunity. I know Mike has worked with him and sees him a lot and sees his progress, but he's going to be a great asset to the organization. I mean, a great asset because of his skill set and what he brings to the table. So I'm excited to see how he makes the transition. I know what I expect of him. I know what he expects of himself, and I'm sure the fans of LA will really enjoy when they get the opportunity to finally see him wear a Kings uniform.
And let's seg to Mike, because as you mentioned, Tony, Mike has seen Alex play, and Mike is part of the player development staff with the Kings. He had done a lot of scouting before that. So, Mike, give us your take on Alex Turcotte and where he's at right now.
Well, first of all, Nick, nice seeing you and Corey and Tony. It's great to see you guys. And with Turcotte, we're real excited to have him. It was tough playing college hockey as a freshman, and he had a big role there. Tony's done a great job with him, and we're looking forward to, when this all gets over with, to get our hands on him and start working with him in development. And we're real excited. We feel that, we really take our time with our players. We feel there's a big learning curve that they have to go through before they can step and play in the NHL. So we're excited to have him, and he's a great kid. And Tony nailed it. He's very competitive. He's a lot of energy. He makes guys around him better, and we're really excited to have him.
We look forward to seeing Alex Turcotte in a Kings uniform, hopefully sooner than later. Now, let's talk about your college careers as players. Tony, University of Wisconsin, Mike at Michigan State, and Corey at the University of Minnesota. I'll start with you, Corey. You're from that state, Cloquet, Minnesota, as we mentioned earlier. Is that still a dream of all the kids who play high school hockey and grow up playing hockey in that state to play for the Gophers?
Well, I mean, I think I would say back when the decision was mine, I think it was a little more prevalent that if you have the opportunity, you usually take it. There aren't a lot of guys that I know back in, say, my era or in that era that turned it down. I mean, Tony might be one of them, but he wasn't a non-Minnesotan there when we didn't, and there wasn't a lot of non-Minnesotans. So I think at that point they started dabbling with Tony and a couple other guys, but it certainly was, Wisconsin was probably the other option with Badger Bob, sitting in my living room telling me he was going to be there. And then, ironically, I did commit to Minnesota, and then he shortly thereafter went to Calgary. But no, it was a dream, and it was best 4 years of my life, really, when it's all said and done. College, pro hockey is absolutely awesome. A lot of good experiences, a lot of good times, but college was just a blast.
Hey, what about your year playing with us? That wasn't any good?
That was great.
Come on. Your best 4 years of your life is with Minnesota. Me, you, and Mel and Ives was playing with you, for crying out loud.
Oh, yeah. No, it was, I tell you what, I thought this, and it's
Ives was your second best experience?
Best year of hockey as a line mate. You guys were my best line mates ever. So, and the problem is, Tony and Yari, every time they got on my line, they were just trying to get off it. So, and unfortunately,
because 99 was at the other center.
Yeah, exactly. It was just trying to get on Gretz's line. So, it was pretty tough. And Mikey, he was probably trying to get off it too. So, I mean, I was just trying to find my way there.
Tony, a Badger for 4 years. What led to your decision to wind up playing for the University of Wisconsin?
I grew up in Chicago, only 2 hours from Madison. So I had seen some college games as a kid. I was lucky enough to sneak into the Dane County Coliseum back then, and it was sold out crowds. And every time we came up here for a tournament, I'd go to those games, and I'd saw Mark Johnson play and Bobby Suter and lots of other great college players. And that's, it was a dream of mine to have a chance to play there. So it worked out really well, and it was great for my parents and family. They were only a couple hours away. My brother Donnie, brother Robbie, and cousin Kevin all followed me here and had a chance to play at Wisconsin as well. So we had 4 family members that were able to play here. So been a great school for all of us.
Speaking of family members playing for one school, Mike, you're close to the Millers. I think at last count, I talked to maybe Drew Miller when he was playing in Detroit, maybe 6, 8 years ago, and he had told me that there were 9 Millers that had attended and played hockey at Michigan State, where you played. From Michigan, was Michigan State number one on your list when you knew you could play college hockey?
Well, it's kind of a funny story with me, Nick. I was a big Michigan fan growing up and really wanted to go to Michigan and had an opportunity, and just some things didn't work out when I was heading there, and I ended up going to Michigan State, obviously, instead. And it was a great decision on my part. I think in my 4 years at State, we never lost to Michigan once. And Ron Mason came into East Lansing and to Michigan State, and he really did a great job of putting that program together. And I really believe it was made a big difference in my career. I was never drafted, so I was a free agent, and I was able to keep getting better and learn in that program. And it was a great development program. We had a lot of great players: Craig Simpson, Joe Murphy, Bobby Asenza. I think my senior year there was only 2. I was only one of the 2 guys that wasn't drafted on our team. So Ron Mason did a fantastic job of recruiting and developing, and it was a great place to play. I really enjoyed it there. It was awesome, and it was a great experience. And I kind of lean towards Corey a little bit. My 4 years there were awesome, and it was a great experience, and I loved it. And I highly recommend guys in our area. In Michigan kids are still they're going back to Michigan now. Before, and when I was going to college, there was a lot of kids in the Detroit area going to Michigan State, and it's kind of changed now. There's majority of the kids want to go to Michigan. They've done a great job there, and with Danton Cole and Chris Luongo back at Michigan State, I think they're doing a good job, and hopefully we can regain some of the popularity here in Michigan.
I know, Mike, in your senior year, the year you guys won the NCAA title, you had 59 goals. Is that still, do you know, is that still the CCHA record?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yep, it is.
He's always one shy. Like he gives me grief every time he sees me for not ever getting him the 30 mark there when he played for the Kings 2 years. He's stuck on 29, and I get all the heat for that.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. I think the first year you had 29 goals with the Kings. You did that the hard way. You did not have one power play goal. They were all even strength, and I think maybe a shorthanded goal. Good for you.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I think you're right. I mean, there's a couple things there. We had a very talented team, and we had a lot of great players, and with Luke on the power play, he could hang out there for about 145 or 150. So it was tough to get the ice time on the PP. But I was fortunate. I got to play with some good players, and in our days in LA, Corey is right. I got stuck on 29 2 years in a row, and I'm not going to blame him for that. I had a lot of chances, and both those guys set me up, and I hit the post, the crossbar, missed chances, and anyways. But it's funny talking about it now, but I mean, it hurt the pocketbook back then. That's for sure.
Yeah, the days when bonuses were part of your contracts.
Yeah.
Before we transition to the 3 of you playing for the Kings, I just want to get a sense, growing up as a kid, was hockey always the sport for you guys, or did you enjoy all the sports? Did you try and play everything? I know in this day and age, a lot of kids who excel at one sport, they're doing it 12 months out of the year. But Corey, how about you? I mean, I know Minnesota is the state of hockey. At the XL Energy Center, all the high school jerseys are prominently displayed. It's great to walk in and see that. But for you, was it always hockey, or were there other interests for you as a kid?
Oh, I had a lot of interest. I mean, I played a lot of different sports. I love baseball. I obviously played some golf growing up. Dabbled in football, but I quickly learned that wasn't going to be probably a great sport for me. But no, I mean, I was trying to do everything. We really, and when you look back on it, oddly enough, the high school season, and through high school hockey here in Minnesota is only like 4 months long. I mean, that's craziness really when you think about it. What they're doing nowadays, right? I mean, these guys are playing 12 months a year. So, but we played all kinds of sports.
And how about you, Tony? Obviously, a sister, Hall of Famer, Cammie, playing sports as a kid, a couple of brothers. You grew up in the Chicago area. I think if I remember correctly, your parents had season tickets to the Blackhawks. So where did hockey kind of fit in with the other sports as a kid?
Hockey was always number one by a big margin. I did play baseball in high school. I liked baseball. I'll still remember this time. We used to have baseball practices at 6 a.m. before classes started in January and stuff to get ready for the season. But a hockey schedule used to make us play, because I played on older teams, until midnight. So the guy would have me up for the 6 o'clock baseball practice, and a couple times he came up to me and said, "Man, you're sleepy today." I said, "Yeah, sorry, coach, I had hockey till late last night." And he said, "I think it's probably a pretty good time. You should probably maybe think about quitting hockey." And I remember that comment, and I said, "Okay, he's going to make me make a decision here." And that was kind of when I just in my mind said, "Well, I don't really like baseball that much. I think I'm going to shift to hockey." And that really was the kind of deciding, pushed me over to the ledge to say, you know what, hockey's way more important than baseball. And that's kind of when I shifted to full-time hockey.
And Mike, how about you? Growing up in a great sports town, Detroit, just outside of Detroit, where the support over the years for all the pro teams is just phenomenal. What about as a kid? Was it just hockey for you, or did you have other interests?
No, I grew up playing baseball, hockey. I love both sports, and kind of what Tony said there. I was in high school, and it was my senior year, and the coach was like, "Listen, we got in the wintertime, he was making us, take practice in the gym. We'd have batting practices and infield practice, and finally it just got to a point where I had to make a decision too, and I couldn't do both anymore. But I love baseball. I was fortunate enough when I was 16, was able to go to the Mickey Mantle World Series. We were state champs in Michigan, and we ended up going to the Mickey Mantle World Series, and we lost two. We were 2-2, and one of the teams we lost to was a California team. But it was a great experience. I love baseball, but when it came down to choosing one or the other, hockey was always I love both of them, but hockey, I just loved hockey more. So ended up sticking with that.
What position in baseball?
I was a second base or third base. I was an infielder. Yeah.
Good hitter? Could you hit the ball?
Yeah. Contact guy, Nick. I was didn't strike out a lot. I wasn't a power hitter.
I see you as a number 2 in the lineup.
I could steal bases, though. I was pretty quick on the bases. But I was fortunate. We had a really good, some really good coaching in the Detroit area for baseball, and I just loved it. It was I just couldn't sit around, sit still. So I love playing baseball, and I used to be so excited when we had games. I remember getting my uniform out, ready to play at night, and I loved it. And it was unfortunate that I had to quit. I didn't really want to, and I remember when I got to Michigan State, I had a couple of friends that were playing on the Spartans. They're like, "Hey, listen, you should come play baseball." And I'm like, "There's no way." And I could, I struggled enough with school, but it's something that I really enjoyed, and I'm glad I was able to play it.
All right, let's transition to the pro game. And I didn't realize this till I did my research, but all three of you broke into the NHL with the New York Rangers organization, and then ultimately became teammates with the Kings as the Kings made trades to acquire you. Corey, early on in your career, you get traded. I believe it was Randy Gillen going to the Rangers. What was going through your mind when you found out you were going to join the LA Kings, a team that obviously had Wayne Gretzky?
Well, it was a pretty good day. That's a long story. We don't have enough time for the whole deal, but that was I was going through a tough time. Originally, when I signed my first contract, I got a pretty bad knee injury the second exhibition game. Brian Leach has given 2 bad passes in a career. They unfortunately are both to me. And he gave me a pass on an exhibition game, got behind me. So I stopped to gather it. And then Trottier came in and put knee on knee. And that was really that was 3 surgeries. And 3 surgeries and 2.5 years later to get, full swing. So, and that year with New York was was up and down, and I was deciding whether I go back to home for Christmas because I was currently in Binghamton at the time. So I decided to go home for a couple days just to reset my button and kind of get my, my mental, capacity back. And then I got the call while I was home over Christmas break that I got traded to the Kings. So I went from, Binghamton, New York to LA. So that's a pretty good deal.
And Tony, you were part of a very big deal. I think it was during All-Star Weekend. You and Tomas Sandstrom are traded by the Rangers for the Kings' Bernie Nichols, who the season before had a 70-goal season. You're young in your career. How did you take to that trade at that stage?
Well, I think when you come in and you begin with an organization, you always think, wow, I'd love to play here my entire career. And people say, hey, we love having you, this, that, and the other thing. And you think, you think that would be nice, but you also realize that the professional part of the game is that someday you may get traded. So when the rumors first started, at first you feel somewhat insulted and you feel like, geez, they're not really appreciating you here. And then you look at the other side of it and you say, well, the Kings must be offering a heck of a lot to try to get you. And so I guess you, as a pro, you learn to understand that's part of it, and you try to see the positive side of it. So I remember the call I got from Bruce McNall to tell me about the trade. That was the first one to get a hold of me. I was actually in Madison, Wisconsin, like you said, during the All-Star break. And Bruce said, Tony, we've been trying to get you since we played against you last year. Wayne and I talked after the game and said, it'd be nice to add that guy to our lineup someday. So from that phone call there, knowing that Wayne Gretzky, first of all, knew who I was, I thought that was pretty exciting. And then have the opportunity to go there and have a chance to play with him, play with Luke, and all of the other great Dave. I remember thinking Dave Taylor, talk about a typical pro guy that you look up to, that you admire for all that he had, done throughout his career. And so it was just really a dream come true to be able to go there and play with all of the players that we had in our locker room over the years I was there. If you look at the names of those guys, Corey mentioned Curry there a second ago. We already mentioned Luke. We had Blakey, Marty, Kelly, Rudy. You go on and on and on and on, a list of the players that you look back now and you realize how grateful you were to have an opportunity to see what they were like as pros, to have them as your teammates, and to be really close to winning a Stanley Cup. I think that's the thing that we all kind of look back on and are grateful for, that opportunity to play with the Kings and compete and come really close to winning a cup. I think that's what we're proud of, how hard we played, and more so, like, I guess, the character of the guys that we played alongside, which made it really special.
And we'll touch on that time in Kings hockey in a moment. But Mel, Mike, I want to get you to chime in. You're traded to the Kings for Mikko Makela. He goes to the Buffalo Sabres. And was this a trade that you welcomed, or were you indifferent about it? What were your thoughts back then?
Nick, I was so excited. I was trying to get out of Buffalo. I was up and down a lot in 3 years. Played with a lot of good players there, good teammates, but I just wasn't getting an opportunity. And I went to the American League and I played in Rochester, and we went to the Calder Cup Finals the year before, and we lost in Game 7. And I think that had a lot to do with me getting out. I had a good run there, and my agent and I decided, listen, we're not going to get an opportunity in Buffalo. So I went back to training camp there, and they sent me down to the minors right away. And back then it was so hard, Nick. When you got sent down on waivers, there was no movement really. Guys would get sent down to the minors, and it was hard to get out. So basically, when they sent me to the minors, I just said I wasn't going. So I went back to Detroit, and I got traded within 2 days to Los Angeles, and I was so excited, Nick. I remember watching LA on TV, and I liked their style, the way they played. They had some really good offensive players with Luke and Gretz, and just a fun team to watch, and I liked their style. And so when I got the call, I was so excited. The only bad news was they told me I had to report to New Haven. So I was like, oh man. So I got to New Haven, and I was there probably about 3 weeks. And I was playing, and they put a C in my jersey, and I'm like, oh man, I don't want to be the captain here. I want to play in LA. I'm like, so I ended up being there for about 3 weeks, and it's so funny how things work out. I got called up, and from New Haven, Cap Raider came down to watch me play, and after the game, he came up to me, he goes, "You're coming back with me," and I'm like, okay, so I flew back to LA with Cap Raider. And what happened was Luke got suspended for 4 games. I think he I don't know what he did. I think he might have chopped somebody, but he got a 4-game suspension. And that's how I got my break, And when Luke got suspended, I got called up. And I remember Webby going, "Hey, you're going to be here for 4 games while Luke's suspended." And I was thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going back to New Haven. So just funny how things work out. And, I'm just was so fortunate to be able to play in LA for 5 years. And it was an unbelievable experience. It really was.
Now let's talk about the time together, the 3 of you with the Kings. 2 years. Corey Millen was with the Kings for pretty much 2 seasons. And of course, the 92-93 season, I'm looking at some of the numbers. Tony, you have 82 points, 37 goals that year. Another 29-goal season for Mike, 69 points. And Corey, I want to start with you because you only had 39 points, but you only played 42 games. And I'm looking up your game log of that season. You had a stretch in November and December of that year, and this is at a time when Gretzky is out. He had the back injury to start the season. You had a stretch where you had 15 goals in 15 games. I mean, it was really clicking for you. Now, with that said, early in that season, when the 3 of you guys and the rest of your teammates know there's no Wayne Gretzky and you really don't know for how long, do you remember the first time you skated together as a line? Because I know once the playoffs started and Gretzky was back in the second half, you guys were a line mate for pretty much the entire playoffs. But Corey, can you remember the first time where the 3 of you were put together and off you went?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because, I played the entire 1987, basically 1987-88 Calgary U.S. hockey season, that Olympic year with Tony. So I was really lucky. I mean, Tony's an awesome guy to play with. He's got a motor. He works. He's intelligent. Like he makes plays. I mean, so I knew what it was like to play with him. He can score. So, I mean, and we had success as a duo with another guy or even maybe a couple other guys. So that was some familiarity. And like I said, Tony, I mean, I guarantee if you talk to anybody, you talk about playing with him, that he was really a good guy to play with. I mean, he just worked. He was just, there was just a lot of great attributes there. And I got the chance to play with Mike, I think, with Kadalski prior to that when I first got to LA after the trade. So I had a taste with Mike and Bobby Kadalski, and we had some success there. And Mike obviously has a motor also. So I think really when it's all said and done, I mean, we got together. It was kind of a seamless deal. I mean, I think there was a lot of opportunities created by all 3 players. You know what I mean? Everyone was getting their chances. So I think, having said that, I joke with Tony about trying to play with Gretz. Let's face it. I mean, it's a no-brainer. But the 3 of us did, I think, we fed off each other with our speed, creating opportunities, creating chances. And it seemed like a pretty obvious thing. It just the way we created opportunities with our legs and with our ability to make some plays.
And Tony, do you recall, did you guys play much together in that first half of the season when Gretzky was out?
I think, I don't know. I think the lines were mixed up quite a bit there by Barry. But the one thing that I do remember is back in the NHL back then, there weren't too many times where 2 small guys were put on the same line. In our situation, you basically put 3 guys that are undersized physically for sure. Corey, I think you're the biggest one on the line. Is that what you claim?
Well, yeah, you guys were good at taking pictures with your skates on while I was standing on my feet. I know that for sure.
So anyhow, but like Corey said, our Olympic year in '87 there, Corey had an unbelievable Olympics. I think he did. He led the Olympics in scoring that year, and we played together. So I knew that we had some chemistry. I also knew the offensive skill that he had. And then I had watched Mike come in, and I watched Mike every practice and saw that there wasn't a better sniper or goal scorer that I had seen in hockey that I was able to play with. So for me, it was an opportunity to say, okay, both these guys have something that would complement all of us. And the other thing I think that we enjoyed playing with each other because we liked each other as guys. I think we had a ton of fun away from the rink. Marty was the first one to point out our size of our line. We loved playing against bigger lines. I loved it when we lined up against, other players and they're looking at us like they're going to push us around, and that didn't happen. So it was I remember that as one of the a line that was, special from the standpoint that nobody else, I don't think, than Barry would have said, hey, you three guys can do this because I trust all of you that you're going to be responsible defensively. You're not going to back down physically. You're going to stick your nose in there when you need to. And he gave us that opportunity. And if, I think we all had pretty much career years that year. So it was something that worked out well. And I look back as, like I said, one of the funnest times I've ever had playing hockey.
And just for the record, Mike Donnelly is the giant of the three at 5'11". Tony's at
5'11".
Corey is at 5'7".
That is with skates for sure, Nick. 5'11". Come on. There was there was no central scouting back there. So that's what
right.
He put on the paper at the start of the year when he had to fill out his bio. 5'11", now, come on.
Hey, Nick's
all
got
right.
the stats in front of him.
Call it a tie between the two of you. You're
Hey,
both.
Nick, I don't know what Tony. I agree with you, Nick. That was 5'11" was right.
Let's and Mike, let's transition now. That season, Gretzky comes back in January that year. You're the third place team in the division. You start the playoffs, and pretty much I was looking at the Calgary series, then Vancouver, Toronto, and the final with Montreal. You three are together, and I had you down as the second line behind Gretzky, Sandstrom, and Luc Robitaille. Talk about, Mike, the experience of the three of you playing, your effectiveness during that great playoff run.
Well, Nick, I think with our line, these guys mentioned some really important things as far as, first of all, we really liked each other. We had a lot of fun off the ice and on the ice, and we enjoyed hanging around each other, and we complimented each other well on the ice. We all brought something to the team, and it was fun to play with these guys. Tony and Corey they're extremely talented hockey players, gifted passers. I was fortunate that these guys, they were able to create so many plays and so many opportunities for me to get a chance to score. And I think we were a tough matchup, looking at the playoffs. And I remember watching the Toronto series, game 6 and 7, and they put Gilmore against us at times. And I think looking back at it, we were a tough matchup. Guys, we put teams on their heels, and we wouldn't allow their offensive players to get going. And we tried to attack, and we tried to use our speed and our skill and our tenacity to try to, create offensive opportunities for ourselves. And, I remember when Corey and I were roommates, and I remember when we got to when we ended up beating Toronto and we got to Montreal, we were watching the news there, and Pat Burns was talking. He said it was that Millen line was a tough matchup for us, and we had no answer for those guys. And I think, we were we were gifted the way we were able to play with each other. We all had really good assets that it made us hard to play against, and we were the speed and the tenacity and our ability to score. I think we were a tough matchup for other teams.
During your stay, the three of you with the Kings, your teammate is Wayne Gretzky. I just want you to weigh in on what it's like being in the locker room night after night, day after day with a guy of his caliber. Corey, I'll start with you.
Gosh, it's a question I get very often, obviously. Very, very lucky to have, to been a part of that trade and having the opportunity to play with him. One of those things that probably at the time it's it's best that I didn't really quantify it. But I think Wayne he had the ability to make everybody feel like we had a chance to win all the time. And then with that being said, if you do, like Tony said, you look around the room and you got Yari Curry, Thomas Sandstrom, Luke Robitaille, McSorley, Huddy, Kelly Rudy. I mean, you just go on and on and on. These two guys, it's just, you just know, and it's no mystery how once we got the ball rolling in playoffs, that, I mean, if you look at it, you can see how it happened, and when it's all said and done, I mean, I think we all would like to have that series back, that Montreal series back, but momentum's an interesting thing. But, playing with Wayne is something I cherish in my career. It was just awesome to watch him, lead and interact, and you learned a lot just as a person and kind of as a teammate. That's some of the things that I learned, and I'll take away from it.
And Tony, I know off and on throughout your career as a King, you had the chance to play with Wayne Gretzky as a line mate. And I know some people would say, it's easy to play with a great player. Others would say, well, it's not that easy. You've got to have a certain makeup. What was your take on it when you were able to play with Wayne as a line mate?
It was pretty easy. And one of the first things that, like you said, when you first get into that spot and you look at the lineup sheet and you say, holy cow, I'm on 99's line today. What the heck am I on that line for? What am I going to do? And I remember the first game or first couple games, I'm sitting next to him on the bench, and I said, Gretz, you got to tell me what you need me to do here. Just tell me what you need me to do. I'll do it. And he said, Tony, you're on my line because of what you do. But if you get the puck in the offensive zone, you don't know what to do with it, throw it behind the net. How hard could that be, right? And you think about it, and I think that was the trigger for me in the offensive zone. Anytime I jumped on a loose puck and I felt there was any pressure, I'd throw it behind the net. He could read off of me. That seemed to work out really well. But I think in the big picture, like Corey just said, there's no greater thrill for me in my hockey career than to say that I actually, was on the same team, same line at certain times as Wayne. So I watched that Michael Jordan thing, like everybody else in the sports world, because there's nothing else going on in sports right now. I watched it over and over and over again, and I saw, greatness and Michael and how he dominated his sport. And I look at Wayne in the same way of what he did for our sport and how he did it. He was that guy. And in a different way, Wayne wasn't going to yell at Corey, let's get going here, and push him that way. He was going to do it in a different way. But you wanted to play great because Wayne was on your team, and the respect that we had for him as teammates, we didn't want to let him down. And that Game 7 in Toronto, going into that game, if you go back and you read the paper the day before and you saw the questions that people had, well, is Wayne at his end here? It looks like he's slowing down, this, that, and the other thing. As teammates, I was ready, I was sick to my stomach to read that after watching what, he had gone through during the year with his back injury. Watched how he worked to come back, and I know what he meant to us as teammates. I know what he meant to the league for what he did for all of us. And to see him step up in Game 7 there and kind of shove it in everybody's face that had doubts that he, was slowing down, was probably the greatest game that I could say I was part of, as far as watching 99 be able to put that show on. I think, Mike, you scored the big goal to tie it or give us a lead. You scored a goal to give us a lead in the third?
Yeah.
Corey, you got the assist, I'm sure. I must have been back checking. I must have caused a turnover on our end because I wasn't anywhere near you two when it went into that. But anyhow, going back to Gretz, I mean.
That's how I remember it.
Yeah, something like that. I'm sure Kelly Rooney made a dramatic save at our end because we got probably caught off the ice and they kicked it our way. But anyhow, the experience of playing with Wayne, that's my greatest thrill as an athlete, is to say that I did that for 6.5 years. And I am ever grateful. Every time I see him, I give him a hug and thank him for being as classy and as respectful and as wonderful of a teammate as you could ever dream of having.
And Mike, where does your appreciation fall for 99?
I got to go back to that Game 7. Actually, Corey, and he's going to be excited that I'm going to mention this because he doesn't get a lot of he made a great play along the wall on our own end. He took a big hit. Someone smoked him. He got hammered.
It was one.
I was back there picking him up, Mel. That's where I was. That's why I wasn't up there with you.
And then Tony made an unbelievable play. After Corey got the puck out, Tony cut across the blue line. He passed to Zhitnik, and we got a fortunate bounce, and it went in. But, it was but I wanted to mention that both those guys made great plays on that goal. But getting back to Gretzky, like Tony said, Corey, he was a special guy, like so special. And he he enjoyed the game so much. And, just being around him, we just wanted to become better players and wanted to make sure that, we were at the top of our game. And, it was a fun environment to play in. The way he was so skilled and he did so many things that were amazing to us. And we practiced with him every day. And I remember one time Tony and I were playing with him in Winnipeg, and he made this unbelievable pass to me, and I didn't even know how he saw me, and I got the puck, and I think I scored or whatever. But I go, Tony, I can't believe he saw me. He goes, hey, Mel, you know how he saw you? He goes, he was looking in the glass. He saw your reflection. I'm like, what? So he was amazed. Some of the stuff that he did was amazing to us, and we couldn't believe he was able to pull it off. And he was a great teammate. He carried a lot of weight on his shoulders. He took personal responsibility of the team, and he wanted to make sure everybody was taken care of. And, he really was very, very special. A lot of things that people don't know what he did for his teammates, and just the environment that he created was amazing. And it was very special. And it was like an extended family that we had in LA, and it was close, and he cared about our guy, his teammates. And, he was excited when guys got new contracts, and he was very excited for you. And you could tell he's just a genuine, great person. And I think both of us today, we're very fortunate that we played with the best player in the world. So we're very lucky.
Well said. Let's transition to the here and now, the game, the NHL game today. I don't know. You guys weren't the biggest of players some 30 plus years ago when you broke into the NHL. So maybe did you beat the odds the way the game was played with the rules back then? But what do you think about the game today? And maybe how do you think you would fit in to the game today? Corey, I'll start with you.
Well, I think we all have a story similar to the one Mike told, is that we're fortunate to have gotten the opportunity. And I think each of us had a little bit of a battle. And I'd throw a bone to Tony for me, playing against, with, and I think he's largely to do with me getting my first contract with the Rangers. His success in his rookie year, I decided not to go that route. I was going over to Europe. I didn't want to battle the minors and, going through that. And I think Tony's first year was unbelievably, could have been rookie of the year. And then I think the Rangers looked and said, well, these guys had good success together. So that's what Tony's success that year obviously gave me the opportunity. But you also have to get the opportunity. LA gave me that opportunity. It gave me the opportunity to play with great players and get, more than, your 8-9 minutes a game. And then with that, I like to think all of us took advantage of it. But it was always a battle for me. I went through that. So the game today, I think would suit our line just wonderfully. I would love to dial it back and have us just plop us right in the middle of it, because I think we would be just fine. I have a funny story that just when I was playing for Jacques Lemaire in the Devils, and we had our whites on in Quebec City, and I remember it vividly. I jumped on to start the game. I jumped over the bench to get on, and he's like, Corey, what the heck with your jersey? And we had our white jersey on, and it was covered in black marks of hooking marks everywhere. It was almost a black jersey. And back in the day, everyone used what they call the Gory Howe tape, and it was like a guy grabbing onto you, and you couldn't get by him. And my jersey was littered with it. And I know these guys had the same stuff. They're not allowing, don't let those three guys, forecheck. And so I think it would be, I think from two perspectives, from not getting hooked every time you got the puck or wanted to forecheck, and also wouldn't mind maybe getting just one paycheck of what's going on these days. You know what I mean? Like, I think we wouldn't mind having even a 20 goal scorer salary for just maybe one paycheck.
Yeah, you mentioned the difference in the way the game is called, Corey. I was watching a replay a few weeks ago. I think it was Oilers Islanders from the early 80s. And they dropped the puck, and after 10 seconds, I could pick out 3 penalties that would be called today: a hook, a hold, and an interference. So yeah, I mean, they have opened things up with the rule changes. Tony, you're right on top of it because you're coaching. And what are you seeing in today's game? And does the style that you use in coaching your athletes kind of mirror what the NHL is trying to do now?
Well, that's our job, I guess, as a collegiate coach now. Most of the players that we get are drafted in their dreams to play in the NHL. So our job here is kind of an extension of what Mel does from the standpoint. We're working with the NHL teams to try to develop them to get ready for the NHL. So I love today's game, and I loved the game back in the 80s when we played in the 90s with, the competitiveness and the grind and the physical mental toughness that you needed, every single night to look at the guy across from you. And whether you're 5'9", it didn't matter. You looked him in the eye and you let him know you were coming after him. And that, that somewhat has slipped away. So that competitiveness that you used to be able to admire for players is, Brad Marchand's, I guess, the last guy left that would be like that, a smaller player that takes on the world. But I think everybody had to, and I look at our line, and we played against big, tough, hard-nosed defensemen that every single night tried to pound us into the ice. And part of being a pro player was getting right back up when you got knocked down and going right back at them. And some of that is taken away, I guess, with the way that the game's played today. So I kind of miss a little bit of that, but I also respect and admire the talent. The speed of the game today, the athleticism and skill of these players today is remarkable to watch. And so I love it. I love our game. I hope we're playing soon. I know how painful it is for all of us hockey guys to wonder when we're going to start again and how's it going to be. But if the playoffs start, it's going to be tremendous hockey because the players will be more rested. And they are just as hungry to win a Stanley Cup, in this situation as they would be in any other situation. So I think it's set up for a great playoff.
And Mike, you're obviously right in the mix with today's game, being part of Kings player development. Talk about some of the things that you stress that maybe are different today than they were when you broke in.
I'd have to agree with the Tony on that. Like, I love the style that we played back in when we were in Los Angeles. It was fun. And I remember Barry used to always he was always like, hey, listen, you guys, you might look at our face and see if we're scratched up or had any cuts. And he's like, you guys, if we were cut up, and he knew we were playing hard. But it was a battle. And, you watch that playoff series we played against Toronto, and every time you touched the puck, you got hit. It's different. And the people, I know they show that on classic hockey now, and people always say, I can't believe how hard that hockey was. And it was a grind, and it was awesome to be part of. And it was a great style. And now switching over to today's style, it's a lot different, but it's still, I enjoy it. I love the speed. I love the skill. It's fun to watch. I love the game right now, Nick. I really do. It's fast. We spent a lot of time on, teaching fundamentals as far as, so these guys can step in and play. And we teach our guys, different things. And so we teach them a lot of basic fundamentals that the coaches feel comfortable putting them on the ice. So we spend a lot of time on, just basic fundamentals on puck protection and, ball play. And then we teach our guys, offensive skill stuff, and it's awesome. It's an awesome game right now, and it's fun to teach. And and it's a speed and skill game, and it's really enjoyable to watch and be a part of.
Well, I'll tell you what's been awesome has been going back in time with you three here on this Legends Series chat. We're going to wrap it up right now, but Corey Millen, Tony Granato, Mike Donnelly, thanks for being with us today. Here's hoping we're all back, as Tony mentioned, sooner than later, and everybody stay healthy, and good luck to all three of you. Thanks again.
Thanks, Nick. Great job. Cor,
Good to see
Michael,
you guys.
great job, boys.
Good to see you.
See you, Corey. Thanks, Nick.
Yep, thank you, guys. And Kings fans, join us next time for another Kings Alumni Legends Series chat. So long, everybody.